What would you do if the man who saved your life became the one person you needed saving from? What if one single night shattered everything you believed about love, trust, and survival? What if the most dangerous man in the city looked into your eyes and said you now belonged to him, and there was absolutely nothing you could do about it? This is the story of Amara Chun, a woman who thought she knew what her future held, until a bullet changed everything. This is a story of blood, betrayal, and a love so twisted it could either save her or destroy her completely. Before we begin, if you love intense stories filled with shocking twists and heart-pounding moments, hit that subscribe button right now because you won't want to miss a single second of what happens next. Trust me, nothing in this story is what it seems. Now, let's dive into the night that changed everything. Chapter 1. What would you do if you watched the love of your life die right in front of you, and then discovered that everything he ever told you was a lie? Amara Chun stared at the diamond ring on her finger, watching it catch the soft candlelight of Bellissimo, the most expensive restaurant in the city. Across from her, Michael Bennett smiled, that perfect smile that had made her fall in love with him 2 years ago. Tonight was supposed to be their engagement celebration. Tonight was supposed to be the beginning of their forever. She had no idea it would be the end of everything. Michael reached across the table and squeezed her hand. His green eyes sparkled with something she couldn't quite read. Excitement, maybe. Or was it fear? Amara shook off the thought. She was being paranoid. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. That should have been her first warning. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and clinking glasses. Well-dressed couples enjoyed their meals while soft piano music played in the background. Amara took a sip of her wine, trying to calm the strange flutter in her chest. Michael kept glancing at his watch. He kept looking toward the entrance. Something was wrong. Before she could ask, the front doors exploded inward. The sound of gunfire shattered the peaceful atmosphere like a grenade. People screamed. Tables overturned. Glass shattered everywhere as bullets ripped through the elegant space. Amara dropped to the floor, her ears ringing, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Michael grabbed her arm and pulled her behind an overturned table. His face had changed completely. The sweet, gentle man she knew was gone. In his place was someone cold, calculating, dangerous. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket. A gun. Michael had a gun. What the hell is happening? Amara screamed over the chaos. Stay down. Michael shouted back. He wasn't looking at her with love anymore. He was looking at her like she was a problem he needed to solve. 3 men in black suits stormed through the restaurant, firing weapons and shouting orders. They weren't random criminals. They moved like soldiers, like professionals. They were looking for something. Or someone. Michael fired back at them, his movements smooth and practiced. Too practiced. This wasn't the accountant she thought she was marrying. This was someone else entirely. Someone who knew how to kill. One of the gunmen spotted them. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at Michael. Time seemed to slow down. Amara saw Michael's eyes widen. She saw him make a choice. And that choice wasn't to protect her. Michael used her as a shield. He actually pulled her in front of him as the gunman fired. Amara felt herself being yanked forward, felt the cold realization that the man she loved was willing to let her die. But the bullet never hit her. Instead, someone else crashed into her from the side, tackling her to the ground with brutal force. The bullet meant for her head slammed into her savior's shoulder instead. They hit the marble floor hard, and Amara found herself pinned beneath a man she had never seen before. He was massive, built like a weapon himself. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face carved from stone. Blood seeped from his shoulder where the bullet had struck, but he didn't even flinch. He just stared down at her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. Behind them, Michael screamed. Amara twisted her head just in time to see another gunman put 3 bullets into Michael's chest. Her fiancé dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the white marble like spilled wine. Amara tried to scream, but no sound came out. Michael's eyes stared at nothing. The man she loved was dead. Just like that. Gone. The stranger above her pressed a hand over her mouth. Don't make a sound, he whispered. His voice was like gravel, like smoke, like danger itself. More gunfire erupted. The stranger's men, she realized, were now fighting the attackers. The restaurant had become a war zone. Bodies littered the floor. The few survivors huddled under tables, crying and praying. Within minutes, it was over. The attackers were dead. The stranger's men stood among the carnage like dark angels of death. and Amara was still pinned beneath the man who had saved her life. He stood slowly, pulling her up with him. His hand wrapped around her arm like an iron shackle. Amara's legs wouldn't support her. She stared at Michael's body, at the blood, at the ring still on her finger. "Who are you?" she whispered. The stranger tilted his head, studying her like she was an interesting puzzle. "Dante Moretti," he said simply. The name hit her like a physical blow. Everyone in the city knew that name. Dante Moretti, the king of the underworld, the most dangerous man in 5 states. A killer, a monster. "And who is he to you?" Dante asked, nodding toward Michael's corpse. "My fiancé," Amara choked out. Tears streamed down her face. "He was my everything." Dante's expression didn't change. "He was FBI. Undercover agent. He was using you to get to me." He said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Amara shook her head violently. No, that's not possible. Michael loved me. He wouldn't. He just tried to use you as a human shield," Dante interrupted. "That's not love, sweetheart. That's survival." The truth of those words cut deeper than any bullet could. Amara looked at Michael's body again, at the gun in his dead hand, at the coldness that had been in his eyes in those final moments. Had any of it been real? Had he ever loved her at all? Dante's men were moving through the restaurant now, finishing off any witnesses who were still alive. Amara watched in horror as they executed person after person. The couples who had been dining, the staff who had been serving, everyone who had seen what happened. "You're killing them all," Amara whispered. "Can't leave witnesses," Dante said simply. "This is how the game is played." One of his men approached. "Boss, what about her?" Dante's grip on Amara's arm tightened. His dark eyes bore into hers, and she saw her death reflected in them. She was a witness too. She had seen everything. Of course he was going to kill her. But then something strange happened. Dante's expression shifted. Something flickered behind those cold eyes. Interest, maybe. Or calculation. "No," he said quietly. "Not her." The man looked confused. "Boss, she saw everything. Protocol says." "I don't care what protocol says." Dante's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "She's mine now." Amara tried to pull away. "What? No. I'm not anyone's. You can't just." Dante pulled her close, so close she could smell gunpowder and expensive cologne. His lips brushed her ear as he whispered words that would haunt her forever. "You saw everything tonight. You know who I am. You know what I've done. That means you belong to me now. You're mine, Amara-chan. And I always keep what's mine." The room spun. Amara's vision blurred at the edges. The trauma, the shock, the sheer impossibility of what was happening finally overwhelmed her. As darkness pulled her under, the last thing she felt was Dante's arms catching her as she fell. The last thing she heard was his voice giving orders to his men. "Take her to the penthouse. Get the doctor. She's not to be harmed. And someone clean up this mess. I want this place scrubbed so clean it's like tonight never happened." As consciousness slipped away, Amara's last thought was a desperate prayer. A prayer that when she woke up, this would all be a nightmare. That Michael would still be alive. That the monster holding her would disappear. But prayers rarely get answered in the underworld. And Amara's nightmare was only just beginning. What happens when Amara wakes up in Dante's penthouse? Will she find a way to escape, or is she truly trapped in the Mafia boss's world? The answer will shock you. Keep watching to find out. Chapter 2. What would you do if you woke up in a palace that was really a prison, surrounded by luxury, but stripped of every freedom? Amara's eyes opened slowly, her head pounding like someone had taken a hammer to her skull. For a moment, she didn't remember. For one blessed moment, she thought she was home in her own bed, and everything had been a terrible dream. Then the pain hit. Her body ached everywhere. Her ribs screamed with every breath. And the memories came flooding back like a tsunami. Michael. The restaurant. The gunfire. The blood. Dante Moretti. Amara sat up so fast the room spun. She wasn't in her apartment. She was in the most luxurious bedroom she had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a breathtaking view of the city skyline. The bed beneath her was massive, covered in silk sheets that probably cost more than her car. Everything was elegant, expensive, perfect. And completely terrifying. She was wearing different clothes. Someone had changed her. The thought made her skin crawl. Her engagement ring was gone. In its place was a bandage wrapped around her left hand. She didn't remember getting injured, but then again, she didn't remember much after Dante had whispered those words in her ear. "You belong to me now." Amara threw off the covers and ran to the door. Locked. Of course it was locked. She ran to the windows next, searching for a way to open them. They didn't open. The glass was thick, probably bulletproof. She was trapped 40 stories above the ground in a gilded cage. No, 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 she whispered, pulling at the windows desperately. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. The door opened behind her. Amara spun around to find a woman standing in the doorway. She was older, maybe 50, dressed in a simple black dress. Her face was kind, but her eyes were sad, like she had seen too much suffering and learned to accept it. Good, you're awake, the woman said softly. I'm Maria. I take care of Mr. Moretti's home. You must be hungry. I don't want food, Amara said, her voice shaking. I want to leave. Where's my phone? Where are my things? Maria's expression didn't change. Mr. Moretti said you would ask that. Your belongings are gone. Your phone was destroyed. Your apartment has been cleared out. As far as the outside world knows, you died in the restaurant shooting last night. The words hit Amara like bullets. What? No. My sister. My family. They'll look for me. They think you're dead, Maria repeated gently. They've already been notified. I'm very sorry. Amara's legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor, her whole body shaking. Dead. Everyone thought she was dead. Her little sister May, who was studying pre-med at university. Her elderly father. They thought she was gone. They were mourning her right now. This is insane, Amara whispered. He can't do this. He can't just make me disappear. Maria knelt beside her. Child, do you know who Dante Moretti is? He can do anything he wants. He owns half the city. The police, the judges, the politicians, they all belong to him. If he says you're dead, then you're dead. Why? Amara looked up at the older woman with tears streaming down her face. Why me? Why didn't he just kill me like the others? Maria's expression darkened. I don't know. Mr. Moretti doesn't explain himself. But I've worked for him for 10 years, and I've never seen him spare a witness before. You must be special somehow. Special. The word tasted like poison in Amara's mouth. She didn't want to be special to a monster. Please, Amara begged. Please help me escape. I won't tell anyone. I'll disappear. I'll leave the country. Just please help me. Maria stood slowly, shaking her head. I can't. If I betray Mr. Moretti, he'll kill everyone I love. My daughter, my grandchildren, everyone. I'm sorry, but you're on your own. She left, and the door locked behind her with a sound like a death sentence. Amara stayed on the floor for a long time, crying until she had no tears left. Then anger replaced the fear. Hot, burning anger that dried her tears and straightened her spine. She wasn't going to just accept this. She wasn't going to be some mafia boss's prisoner. She was getting out of here. For the next 6 hours, Amara searched every inch of the room. She looked for weapons, for tools, for anything she could use. She found nothing. The room was deliberately empty of anything useful. Even the bathroom had no razors, no glass bottles, nothing sharp. As the sun began to set, the door opened again. This time, Dante Moretti himself walked in. He had changed clothes since last night. Now he wore an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. The shoulder where he'd been shot was bandaged beneath his shirt, but he moved like it didn't bother him at all. His dark eyes found her immediately, and Amara felt like prey being studied by a predator. You're awake, he said calmly. Good. We need to talk. Go to hell, Amara spat. Dante's lips quirked in something that might have been amusement. I've been there already. Wasn't impressed. He moved further into the room, and Amara instinctively backed away. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. You made my family think I'm dead. You locked me in this room. You took everything from me. How is that not hurting me? Fair point, Dante acknowledged. He walked to the window, looking out at the city below. But you're alive. Everyone else who was in that restaurant last night is in the morgue. You should be thanking me. Thanking you? Amara couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're the reason they're dead. Your world, your violence, that's what killed them. True, Dante said without a hint of remorse. But your fiancé brought you into that restaurant specifically because he knew I would be there. He was trying to gather evidence against me. He used you as bait. So really, he's the reason you're in this situation. The words cut deep because they held truth. Michael had been acting strange for weeks. The secretive phone calls. The late nights. The way he kept pushing her to meet his work friends. Had it all been a setup? Had their entire relationship been a lie? I don't believe you, Amara whispered, but even she could hear the doubt in her voice. Dante pulled out his phone and held it up to her. On the screen was a video. Security footage from the restaurant. Amara watched herself and Michael eating dinner. She watched Michael checking his watch nervously. She watched him send a text message. Then she watched Dante arrive at the restaurant with his men. And she watched Michael immediately send another text. The timestamp on the second message was exactly 1 minute before the attackers burst in. Michael had called them. Her fiancé had set up the hit. Amara felt like she might throw up. Why would he do that? Because he was FBI, Dante said, pocketing his phone. And he thought if he could create chaos, he could get evidence of me ordering killings. He sacrificed everyone in that restaurant, including you, for his case. Dante turned to face her fully. So like I said, you should be thanking me. I saved your life. And now you're keeping me prisoner. That's not saving me. That's just a different kind of death. Something flickered across Dante's face. Respect, maybe. You've got fire. I like that. It'll make this easier. Make what easier? Dante straightened his suit jacket casually. In 48 hours, you're going to marry me. The words didn't make sense. Amara stared at him, waiting for the punchline. What? You heard me. We're getting married. I've already made the arrangements. The ceremony will be private, just my family and associates. You'll wear white. You'll say your vows. And you'll become Mrs. Dante Moretti. You're insane, Amara breathed. Completely insane. I'm not marrying you. I don't even know you. You're a criminal. A murderer. I would rather die. Dante's expression hardened. That can be arranged. But here's the thing, Amara. If you refuse, I won't kill you. I'll kill your sister instead. The world stopped spinning. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. Dante pulled out his phone again and showed her a live video feed. It showed a young woman with long black hair walking across a university campus, textbooks clutched to her chest. May, her baby sister. Behind May, barely visible in the crowd, walked 2 men in dark suits. Those are my men, Dante said calmly. They've been watching your sister since last night. If you refuse to marry me, I'll give the order, and May will have a very unfortunate accident. Maybe she'll fall down some stairs. Maybe she'll get hit by a car. Either way, you'll attend another funeral very soon. Amara lunged at him. She didn't think, didn't plan, just attacked with pure rage and desperation. Her fists hit his chest, his face, anywhere she could reach. She screamed and clawed and fought like a wild animal. Dante caught her wrists easily, his strength overwhelming. He pinned her arms to her sides and held her as she struggled, as she screamed herself hoarse, as she finally collapsed against him in defeat. Why? Amara sobbed into his chest. Why are you doing this? Because I need a wife, Dante said simply. And you need to stay alive. It's a fair trade. There's nothing fair about this. No, Dante agreed. There isn't. But this is the world we live in now. You can accept it and keep your sister safe, or you can fight it and watch her die. Your choice. He released her and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. The wedding is in 48 hours. Maria will bring you a dress tomorrow. I suggest you get used to the idea because there's no escape from this, Amara. You belong to me now. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. The door closed. The lock clicked. Amara stood in the middle of the golden prison, her mind racing through every possible option. She could try to escape. She could try to warn May. She could try to fight back. But every path led to the same conclusion. Dante held all the power. He had proven that Michael was a liar and a betrayer. He had proven that he could reach her family anytime he wanted. He had proven that resistance was pointless. Unless she found another way. Amara walked to the window and pressed her palm against the cold glass. 40 stories below, the city lights twinkled like stars. Freedom was so close and yet impossibly far away. She thought about May, laughing and unaware of the danger following her. She thought about her father, who had already lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago. Losing both daughters would kill him. Amara closed her eyes and made the hardest decision of her life. She would marry the devil, but she wouldn't give up. She would play along, by time, and find a way to destroy Dante Moretti from the inside. She would become his wife, gain his trust, and then she would burn his entire empire to the ground. It was a long game, a dangerous game, but it was the only game she had left to play. As darkness fell over the city, Amara Chun began planning her revenge. She just had to survive the wedding first. Can Amara really deceive a man who sees through everyone? What will happen at the wedding ceremony? The next chapter will leave you breathless. Keep watching. Chapter 3. What would you do if the most important day of your life became the worst nightmare you could ever imagine? And the man waiting at the altar was the monster who destroyed everything you loved. 48 hours passed like a countdown to execution. Amara spent the time pacing her prison, barely eating, barely sleeping. Maria brought her a wedding dress on the morning of the ceremony. It was beautiful, all lace and silk and pearls. It probably cost more than Amara had earned in her entire life. She wanted to rip it to shreds. Instead, she put it on. Because May was still alive, and that was all that mattered. Maria helped her with her makeup and hair, working in silence. The older woman's hands were gentle, but her eyes were full of pity. Amara hated that pity almost as much as she hated Dante. "You look beautiful," Maria whispered when she was done. Amara looked at herself in the mirror. She did look beautiful. She also looked like a corpse at an open casket funeral. Her eyes were empty. Her skin was pale. The white dress made her look like a ghost of the woman she used to be. 2 of Dante's men came to escort her downstairs. They weren't rough, but their presence was a reminder that this wasn't a choice. This was an order. Disobey and people died. The ceremony was being held in Dante's private estate, about an hour outside the city. Amara was driven there in a black SUV with tinted windows. She stared out at the passing landscape, wondering if anyone would notice a bride being transported like a prisoner. Probably not. In Dante's world, no one asked questions they didn't want answered. The estate was enormous, surrounded by high walls and armed guards. It looked more like a fortress than a home. Inside, the main hall had been decorated with white flowers and candles. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like walking into a beautiful tomb. About 50 people filled the chairs. All men, mostly. Hard-looking men in expensive suits with dead eyes and scarred hands. These were Dante's people. Killers and criminals dressed up like wedding guests. There were a few women scattered throughout, all of them wearing the same careful expression. Mafia wives who had learned to survive by staying quiet and invisible. At the front of the hall, Dante waited beside a priest who looked uncomfortable and eager to get this over with. Dante wore a black tuxedo that fit him like it was made by angels. He looked powerful, dangerous, and completely calm. Like this was just another business transaction for him. When his eyes found Amara, something flickered in their depths. Satisfaction, maybe. Or possession. He was getting exactly what he wanted. Amara walked down the aisle alone. No father to give her away. No friends to stand beside her. No one who cared whether she lived or died. Just a room full of monsters watching her march toward her own destruction. When she reached Dante, he took her hand. His grip was firm, warm, and completely wrong. This hand had killed people. This hand had destroyed lives. And now it was holding hers like they were actually in love. The priest began the ceremony with shaking hands. He rushed through the words, clearly terrified of everyone in the room. Amara barely heard him. Her mind was screaming at her to run, to fight, to do anything but stand here and let this happen. But then she thought of May, and she stayed still. "Do you, Dante Alessandro Moretti, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the priest asked. "I do," Dante said clearly, his voice carrying through the silent hall. "And do you, Amara Chin, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Amara opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She couldn't do it. She couldn't say those words. Dante's grip on her hand tightened slightly. A warning. Amara started. The front doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Armed men poured into the hall, at least 20 of them, all carrying automatic weapons. Dante's men jumped to their feet, reaching for their own guns. The hall erupted into chaos before anyone could fire a shot. "Nobody move," a voice shouted. A man walked through the destroyed doorway like he owned the place. He was older than Dante, maybe mid-40s, with gray streaking his dark hair and a scar running down the left side of his face. His suit was blood red, and he smiled like a shark. "Victor Kozlov," Dante said quietly. The name dripped with venom. "Hello, Dante," Victor said cheerfully. "Sorry to crash the wedding. But we need to have a conversation. About territory. About respect. And about that pretty little thing you're trying to marry." Dante stepped in front of Amara, blocking her from Victor's view. "This doesn't concern you, Kozlov. Leave now, and maybe I'll let you keep breathing." Victor laughed. "You'll let me? That's funny. See, from where I'm standing, I have 20 guns pointed at you and your entire family. So I think I'm the one calling the shots today." The tension in the room was suffocating. Dante's men and Victor's men faced each other like two armies about to collide. One wrong move, and everyone would die. What do you want? Dante asked, his voice deadly calm. The docks, Victor said immediately. The shipping routes. The politicians you own. And the girl. Amara felt ice flood her veins. The girl. He was talking about her. No, Dante said simply. No. Victor raised an eyebrow. You're willing to die for some random woman you just met? That's not like you, Dante. You're smarter than that. She's mine, Dante said. And I don't share what's mine. Victor's smile faded. Then we have a problem. He moved faster than Amara expected. One moment he was standing across the room. The next he had crossed the distance and grabbed her, yanking her away from Dante. His arm wrapped around her throat, and she felt the cold press of a gun barrel against her temple. Let's try this again, Victor said, breathing in her ear. Give me what I want, or I paint this pretty white dress with her brains. Dante's expression didn't change, but his eyes went completely black. You're making a mistake. Am I? Victor pressed the gun harder against Amara's head. Seems to me like I'm holding all the cards. So here's the deal. You sign over the docks and the shipping routes. You give me the names of every politician in your pocket. And you walk away from this girl like she never existed. Do that and everyone lives. Amara couldn't breathe. Victor's arm was crushing her windpipe. The gun against her head felt enormous, like the whole world had been reduced to that single point of cold metal. She could die right now. One pull of the trigger and everything would be over. Maybe that would be better. Maybe death was better than belonging to Dante. But then she thought of May again, and she wanted desperately to live. Okay, Dante said. Everyone in the room froze. Victor loosened his grip slightly, surprised. What? I said okay, Dante repeated calmly. You can have the docks, the routes, the names, all of it. Just let her go. Victor laughed in disbelief. You're serious? You're actually choosing this nobody over your empire. Let her go, and we have a deal. Victor studied Dante for a long moment, looking for the trap. When he didn't find one, he shrugged. All right then. Your funeral. He started to lower the gun. Dante moved. It happened so fast Amara almost missed it. 1 second Dante was standing 10 feet away. The next he was somehow right there, his hand on Victor's wrist. There was a gunshot, deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. The bullet went wild, shattering a chandelier above them. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Dante twisted Victor's arm with brutal efficiency, breaking bone with an audible crack. Victor screamed and dropped his gun. Dante caught it and shot him 3 times in the chest before his body even hit the ground. Amara dropped to the floor as bullets flew overhead. The beautiful wedding hall became a war zone. Men screamed and died. Blood splattered across white flowers. The priest dove behind the altar, praying frantically. Dante grabbed Amara and dragged her behind a marble pillar. Stay down, he ordered, then stepped back into the fight. What Amara saw next would haunt her forever. Dante moved through Victor's men like death itself. Every shot he fired found its target. Every movement was precise, efficient, brutal. He wasn't just fighting. He was executing. Within 3 minutes, every one of Victor's men was dead or dying. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the gunfire. Dante stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing hard. His tuxedo was splattered with blood, but none of it was his. He looked down at Victor's corpse with no emotion whatsoever, then turned to Amara. Get up, he said. We're finishing this. Amara couldn't move. She was frozen in shock, staring at the bodies scattered across the floor. So much death. So much blood. And Dante had caused most of it without even breaking a sweat. Dante walked over and pulled her to her feet. His hands were stained red. The ceremony, he said calmly. We're finishing it. Now. You're insane, Amara whispered. There are dead people everywhere. And there will be more if you don't say your vows right now, Dante said coldly. This was a message. Victor's people know he came here. If we don't finish this wedding, they'll think it's because I'm weak. And if they think I'm weak, they'll come for me. And for you. And for your sister. So we're going to finish this, and we're going to do it standing on top of Victor's corpse if we have to. The priest had emerged from behind the altar, his face white with terror. Dante gestured to him impatiently. Continue. I can't, the priest stammered. This is unholy. Dante pulled out his gun and pointed it at the priest's head. Continue. Now. The priest gulped and picked up his book with shaking hands. Do you, Amara-chan, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Amara looked at Dante. At the blood on his hands. At the cold certainty in his eyes. At the gun he was pointing at a holy man without any hesitation. She looked at the bodies on the floor. At the destruction. At the hell she had been dragged into. And she thought about May, studying peacefully at university, completely unaware of the nightmare happening here. I do, Amara whispered. The words felt like signing her soul away. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the priest said quickly. You may kiss the bride. Dante lowered his gun. He stepped close to Amara, cupped her face with his blood-stained hands, and kissed her. His lips were warm, firm, and tasted like smoke and copper. It should have been repulsive. Instead, Amara felt something electric shoot through her, something she absolutely did not want to feel. When he pulled back, Dante's eyes held a dark satisfaction. You're mine now, Mrs. Moretti. Legally and completely. Amara wanted to spit in his face. Instead, she just stood there, numb and defeated, as Dante's men began cleaning up the bodies around them. Her wedding day. The day that was supposed to be the happiest of her life. And she had spent it standing in blood, marrying a monster, surrounded by death. As Dante led her out of the hall, his hand possessively on her lower back, Amara made a silent vow of her own. This marriage might be legal, but it would never be real. And somehow, someday, she would make Dante Moretti pay for everything he had done. She just had to survive long enough to see it through. Amara is now officially Dante's wife, but what dark secrets is he hiding? The answer in the next chapter will change everything. Keep watching. Chapter 4. What would you do if you discovered that the monster who forced you into marriage was hiding a secret that could either destroy him or save him, and you held the power to decide which? The first week of marriage to Dante Moretti was a study in contradictions. He gave Amara the run of the penthouse but posted guards at every exit. He bought her expensive clothes and jewelry, but reminded her daily that she was his prisoner. He treated her with careful politeness, but his eyes always held that dark possessiveness that made her skin crawl. They slept in separate rooms. Thank God for small mercies. Dante left early every morning for business he never explained and returned late at night smelling of cigars and danger. He barely spoke to her except to ask if she needed anything. It was like living with a ghost who occasionally remembered he had taken a wife. Amara spent her days searching for a way out. She tested every window, every door, every possible escape route. Nothing. The penthouse was a fortress designed to keep people in as much as keep them out. The guards were professionals who never let their attention waver. Maria was kind but loyal to Dante above all else. By the 8th day, Amara was going insane from boredom and frustration. She needed to do something, find something, anything that could give her leverage over Dante. Information was power, and power was the only thing that mattered in this world. That afternoon, while Maria was grocery shopping and the guards were distracted by a delivery, Amara made her move. She slipped into Dante's private office, a room she had been explicitly forbidden from entering. Her heart hammered as she closed the door behind her. The office was masculine and intimidating, all dark wood and leather. One wall was covered in security monitors, showing various locations around the city. Another wall held a massive bookshelf filled with leather-bound volumes. And behind the desk was a filing cabinet that practically screamed secrets. Amara went straight for the cabinet. Locked, of course. But Maria kept spare keys in the kitchen, and Amara had been paying attention. She pulled out the key ring she had borrowed and tried each one until the cabinet clicked open. Inside were dozens of files. Financial records. Property deeds. Names and photographs of people Amara assumed were either allies or enemies. She flipped through them quickly, not sure what she was looking for, but knowing she would recognize it when she saw it. Then she found it. A file labeled simply Lucia. Inside was a birth certificate for a child. Lucia Rose Moretti. Date of birth 5 years ago. Mother's name, Isabella Rossi. Father's name, Dante Alessandro Moretti. Dante had a daughter. Amara's hands shook as she pulled out more documents. Medical records. Photographs. The pictures showed a beautiful little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes. She looked just like Dante. In the photos, she never smiled. She just stared at the camera with an expression far too serious for a 5-year-old child. There were psychiatric evaluations. The words jumped out at Amara. Selective mutism. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Witnessed maternal death at age 3. Refuses to speak. Night terrors. Attachment issues. This child had watched her mother die. And she hadn't spoken a word in 2 years. Amara found another document. A property deed for a house upstate under a fake name. That must be where Lucia was hidden. Protected. Kept away from Dante's dangerous world. Find anything interesting? Amara spun around so fast she dropped the file. Papers scattered across the floor. Dante stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She hadn't heard him come in. How long had he been standing there? I was just... Amara stammered, but there was no point in lying. The evidence was literally scattered at her feet. Dante walked into the office slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. He bent down and gathered the papers, looking at his daughter's face with something that might have been pain. You have a daughter, Amara said quietly. Yes. You never mentioned her. No. Why not? Dante sat on the edge of his desk, still holding Lucia's photograph. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Softer. More human than Amara had ever heard it. Because the last woman I loved died because of me. Because my daughter watched it happen and hasn't spoken since. Because keeping Lucia hidden is the only way to keep her safe from people who would use her to hurt me. He looked up at Amara. Because some secrets are too dangerous to share. What happened to her mother? Dante's jaw clenched. Isabella was the daughter of a rival family. We fell in love despite the war between our worlds. Stupid. Naive. We thought love was enough. He laughed bitterly. It wasn't. When Isabella got pregnant, both families saw it as either an opportunity or a betrayal. Her father tried to force her to abort. My enemies tried to kill her to eliminate a potential heir. We ran. We hid. For 3 years, we actually had something like a normal life. What changed? Isabella's brother found us. Dante's voice went flat. He broke into our safe house with 5 men. They were going to kill all 3 of us. Isabella fought back. She was fierce, my Isabella. She bought me enough time to get to my gun. I killed all 6 of them, but not before one of them put a bullet in her chest. Amara's throat tightened, and Lucia saw it. She was in the room. She watched her mother bleed out in my arms. She watched me kill 6 men in under a minute. She was 3 years old. Dante's hands clenched into fists. She hasn't said a word since that night. Not mama, not papa, not anything. Just silence. The image of that traumatized little girl broke something in Amara's chest. Whatever Dante was, whatever he had done, his daughter was innocent. And she was suffering. Where is she now? Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one knows about except me and the people who care for her. I visit when I can, but not often. Every time I'm near her, I risk leading my enemies to her. Dante looked at Amara with hollow eyes. That's why I needed a wife. The families were starting to question why I stayed single. They were starting to investigate my life more carefully. A wife gives me cover. Makes me look normal. Keeps their attention away from Lucia. So that was it. Amara was camouflage. A distraction. A way to protect the one person Dante actually loved. Does she know you're married? Amara asked. Not yet. Are you going to tell her? Eventually. Dante set down the photograph. Now, are you going to use this information against me? Because I'll be honest, Amara. If you threaten my daughter in any way, I will kill you. I don't want to. But I will. The threat should have terrified her. Instead, Amara felt something unexpected. Respect. Maybe even understanding. Dante was a monster, but he was a monster who loved his child. That made him complicated. Human. Dangerous in a completely different way. I would never hurt a child, Amara said firmly. Whatever you've done to me, she's innocent. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Good. Then we understand each other. Before Amara could respond, Dante's phone rang. He answered it, his expression darkening as he listened. When? He snapped. How many? A pause. I'll be right there. He hung up and moved toward the door. Stay here. Don't leave the penthouse. What's happening? Someone poisoned the water supply at one of my properties. 3 men are already dead. I need to handle this. He was gone before Amara could ask more questions. She stood alone in his office, surrounded by the secrets of a man who was far more complicated than she had imagined. Hours passed. Dante didn't return. Maria came home with groceries and made dinner that Amara barely touched. As night fell, Amara found herself unable to sleep. She kept thinking about Lucia. About that little girl who had watched her mother die and hadn't spoken in 2 years. Around midnight, Amara went to the kitchen for water. She filled a glass from the tap and drank deeply, not thinking about anything except quenching her thirst. 30 minutes later, she knew something was wrong. Her stomach cramped violently. Her vision blurred. She tried to stand but collapsed, hitting the floor hard. Pain exploded through her body, like fire in her veins. She tried to scream but only managed a weak gasp. Poison. Someone had poisoned the penthouse water supply too. Amara crawled toward her phone, her whole body convulsing. She could barely see, could barely breathe. This was it. She was going to die on a kitchen floor, alone and in agony. Her hand found her phone. She managed to unlock it, to find Dante's number, to press call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Amara? Dante's voice was sharp with concern. Help, she whispered. Poison. Water. Can't breathe. I'm coming. Hold on. Do you hear me? Hold on. The phone slipped from her fingers. The world tilted sideways. Amara's last conscious thought was that she had survived so much only to die from a glass of water. The irony would have been funny if she weren't dying. When consciousness returned, it came in pieces. Bright lights, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic, and Dante's voice, rough with something that sounded like fear. Come on, damn it. Come back. You don't get to die. Not yet. Not like this. Amara's eyes fluttered open. She was in a hospital room. IVs ran into her arms. Monitors tracked her vitals. And Dante sat beside her bed, his hand gripping hers like he was trying to hold her to life through sheer will. His eyes were red. His hair was disheveled. He looked like he had been through hell. You're awake, he said hoarsely. Thank God. You're awake. What happened? Amara's voice was barely a whisper. You were poisoned. Same as my men. They got to the penthouse water somehow. You drank it. Dante's jaw clenched. You were clinically dead for 2 minutes. Your organs started shutting down. The doctors said. He stopped, unable to continue. How am I alive? Because I wouldn't let you die. Dante's grip on her hand tightened. I administered the antidote myself. I forced your heart to keep beating. I refused to let you go. Amara stared at him. This man who had kidnapped her, forced her into marriage, made her life a nightmare. This man had also saved her life. Again. Why? She asked. Why do you keep saving me? Dante looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw with emotion she had never heard from him before. Because I can't lose another one. Not like this. Not when I could have prevented it. He laughed bitterly. Isabella died in my arms because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. I watched the life leave her eyes and I couldn't stop it. I won't go through that again. I won't. I'm not Isabella, Amara said quietly. No, you're not. Dante released her hand and stood, his walls slamming back into place. But you're my responsibility now. And I protect what's mine. He walked to the window, his back to her. The people who did this are already dead. All of them. I made sure of it. Of course he had. Because that's what Dante did. He killed to protect what belonged to him. Amara lay in the hospital bed, her body aching and her mind reeling. Everything was so complicated now. Dante wasn't just a monster anymore. He was a father, a widower, a man haunted by the woman he couldn't save. And somehow, despite everything, Amara had become important to him. Not as a person, maybe, but as a symbol, as a second chance, as something he refused to lose. That made him more dangerous than ever. Because now she understood him. And understanding your captor was the first step toward something much more complicated than hate. As dawn broke through the hospital window, Amara closed her eyes and wondered what kind of game she was really playing. And whether she was still trying to escape Dante, or trying to understand him. The line between the two was getting blurrier every day. Amara has survived death twice now. But what happens when she finally meets Dante's daughter? The truth will shatter everything she thought she knew. Keep watching. Chapter 5. What would you do if a child who hadn't spoken in 2 years looked at you like you were the answer to a prayer she couldn't say out loud? Amara spent 3 days in the hospital recovering from the poisoning. Dante visited every day, sometimes sitting in silence for hours, sometimes talking about nothing important. He never mentioned Lucia again, and Amara didn't ask. But the little girl haunted her thoughts like a ghost. On the 4th day, Dante helped Amara back to the penthouse. She was weak, unsteady on her feet, but alive. As they entered the elevator, Dante said something that stopped her heart. I want you to meet my daughter. Amara stared at him. What? Lucia. I want you to meet her. Dante's expression was carefully neutral. She needs to know I'm married. And after what happened, after you almost died, I realized something. You protected yourself from people trying to kill you. You didn't run screaming to the police the moment you woke up. You didn't try to use Lucia's existence as leverage against me. He looked at her directly. You might actually be someone I can trust. I'm your prisoner, Dante. Not your partner. Maybe. But you're also the woman who would have let me die rather than help me escape the FBI raid. You made a choice to save me. That means something. Amara remembered that night. The FBI had surrounded them in the hospital. Dante could have been arrested. She could have been free. Instead, she had created a distraction that let him escape. She hadn't even thought about it. She just acted. She still wasn't sure why. When? She asked quietly. Now. We're not going back to the penthouse. We're going to see Lucia. The drive took 2 hours. They went north, into the mountains where wealthy people hid from the world. The house was modest compared to Dante's other properties, deliberately unremarkable. Nothing that would attract attention or suspicion. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, but they were subtle about it. To a casual observer, this could have been any normal family home. Inside, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes greeted them. Mr. Moretti. She's been waiting by the window since you called. Thank you, Anne. Dante took Amara's hand. His palm was warm, steady. Ready. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Amara admitted. Just be yourself. Lucia is very perceptive. She'll know if you're lying or pretending. They walked through a comfortable living room filled with toys and children's books. Everything was carefully arranged, safe and soft, a world designed to heal a traumatized child. Lucia sat on a window seat, staring out at the mountains. She wore a yellow dress, and her dark curls were pulled back with a ribbon. When she heard footsteps, she turned around. Amara's breath caught. The photographs hadn't done this child justice. Lucia was breathtakingly beautiful, but it was her eyes that stunned. They were ancient eyes in a child's face. Eyes that had seen too much, understood too much, survived too much. Hello, princess, Dante said softly. His whole demeanor changed around his daughter. The dangerous Mafia boss disappeared, replaced by a gentle father. I brought someone to meet you. Lucia's gaze moved to Amara. The little girl studied her with intense concentration, like she was reading Amara's soul. Then something remarkable happened. Lucia smiled. It was a small smile, tentative and fragile. But it transformed her entire face. She climbed down from the window seat and walked slowly toward Amara, stopping a few feet away. Amara knelt down so they were at eye level. Hi, Lucia. My name is Amara. The child tilted her head, still studying Amara's face. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully and held it up. It was a drawing. A crayon drawing of a woman with long dark hair and kind eyes. The woman in the drawing was reaching out her hand, and there were wings sketched behind her shoulders like an angel. Beneath the drawing, in careful child's handwriting, were the words, "The angel from my dreams." Amara's throat tightened. You drew this? Lucia nodded seriously. Then she pointed at Amara and then at the drawing. The message was clear. This is you. I don't understand, Amara whispered, looking at Dante. But Dante looked just as confused. Lucia, sweetheart, you've never met Amara before. How could you dream about her? Lucia went to a bookshelf and pulled down a photo album. She flipped through pages until she found what she was looking for, then brought it to Amara. The photograph was old, faded. It showed a hospital room, a baby in an incubator, and a nurse leaning over the baby, her face partially visible. The nurse had dark hair and gentle eyes. Amara's world tilted. That's my mother, she breathed. That's my mother when she worked at St. Mary's Hospital. Dante took the album, his expression shocked. That's Lucia, when she was born 2 months premature. The doctors said she wouldn't survive the night. But one nurse refused to give up. She stayed with Lucia for 3 days straight, doing everything she could to keep her alive. My mother told me about that, Amara said, tears streaming down her face. She told me about a beautiful baby girl who fought so hard to live. She said that baby gave her hope during the worst time of her life. My mother was dying of cancer. She knew she only had a few months left. But this baby, this little fighter, reminded her that life was worth fighting for. Lucia walked to Amara and gently touched her tears. Then she wrapped her small arms around Amara's neck and held on tight. And Amara held her back, this child who connected her to a mother she missed desperately, this child who had been dreaming of her without knowing why. Your mother saved my daughter's life, Dante said hoarsely. And I never knew. I never got to thank her. She died 5 years ago, Amara whispered into Lucia's hair. But she would be so happy to know Lucia survived. That she grew into such a beautiful little girl. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them connected by a thread of fate they hadn't known existed. When Lucia finally pulled back, she looked at Amara with those ancient eyes and touched her own chest, then pointed at Amara. Mine, the gesture said. You're mine now. I think she's decided you're her mother, and said from the doorway, her voice thick with emotion. I've worked with Lucia for 2 years. She's never opened up to anyone like this. Never smiled. Never shown affection. You're the first person besides her father she's voluntarily touched. Dante looked shaken. Lucia, is that true? Do you want Amara to be your mama? Lucia nodded emphatically. Then she took Amara's hand and Dante's hand and pressed them together. She looked at both of them with such hope it broke Amara's heart. She wants us to be a real family, Amara realized. I married you for protection and cover, Dante said quietly. But maybe there was another reason. Maybe fate was guiding me toward the one person who could help my daughter heal. Before Amara could respond, the sound of breaking glass shattered the moment. And screamed. Dante moved instantly, pushing both Amara and Lucia behind him as armed men burst through the windows. Get down, Dante shouted. But they were surrounded. 6 men, all wearing black masks, all carrying weapons. This was a professional hit team. They had found Lucia. Dante Moretti, one of them said. You killed our boss. Now we take everything you love. Dante reached for his gun, but one of the attackers was faster. He fired twice, and Dante went down hard, blood blooming across his chest. No! Amara screamed. The attackers moved toward Lucia. The little girl stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror. She had been here before. She had watched violence destroy her family before. It was happening again. And Amara realized with crystal clarity that she couldn't let that happen. She didn't think. She just moved. As the nearest attacker reached for Lucia, Amara threw herself between them. She felt the knife before she saw it, felt it slide into her side once, twice, 3 times. White-hot agony exploded through her body. But she wrapped her arms around Lucia and held on. She was a shield. A barrier. Nothing was getting to this child. Not while Amara still breathed. Run, she gasped to Lucia. Run. But Lucia didn't run. She clung to Amara, her small body shaking. And then she did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She screamed. The sound was piercing, primal, full of rage and terror and refusal. It was the sound of a child who had been silent for so long that when she finally found her voice, it contained all the pain and fury she had been holding inside. And it was the sound that saved them. And came running with a shotgun. Dante's guards, who had been disabled outside, stormed in. Gunfire erupted. The attackers tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered now. Within seconds, all 6 of them were dead. Amara collapsed to the floor, still holding Lucia. Blood pooled beneath her. So much blood. She was going to die. She knew it with terrible certainty. But Lucia was safe. That was all that mattered. Amara. Dante crawled toward her, his own wounds forgotten. Stay with me. Don't you dare die. Not now. Not after everything. Take care of her, Amara whispered. Her vision was fading. Promise me you'll take care of her. You're going to take care of her yourself, Dante said fiercely. You're going to live. Do you hear me? You're going to live. He pressed his hands against her wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. His face was twisted with desperation and fear and something else. Something that looked like heartbreak. I can't lose you, he said roughly. I can't lose both of you. Please, Amara. Please stay. Amara wanted to stay. She wanted to see Lucia smile again. She wanted to understand this complicated, dangerous man who had forced her into marriage, but who looked at her now like she was the most important thing in his world. But the darkness was pulling her under. It was so cold. So heavy. The last thing she heard was Lucia's voice, small and broken and beautiful. Mama, the little girl cried. Mama, don't go. Then everything went black. Will Amara survive? And now that Lucia has finally spoken, what does it mean for this twisted family? The answer will leave you breathless. Keep watching. Chapter 6. What would you do if you woke up from near death to discover that the man you thought was your enemy had become something far more complicated, and the lies you believed about love were just the beginning? Amara opened her eyes to find Dante asleep in a chair beside her hospital bed. His head rested on the mattress near her hand, and his fingers were intertwined with hers. He looked exhausted, his face covered in 3 days of stubble, dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was stained with dried blood. Her blood. She tried to move and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her entire torso. The stab wounds. She remembered now. The attackers. Protecting Lucia. The knife entering her body again and again. Lucia. Amara tried to sit up, panic flooding through her. Lucia, she croaked. Dante's eyes snapped open instantly. You're awake. Relief washed over his face so completely it transformed him. Thank God. You're awake. Where's Lucia? Is she safe? She's fine. She's with and at a different safe house. Completely protected. Dante stood, his hand still holding hers. You saved her life, Amara. You took 3 stab wounds meant for her. You almost died. How long? 3 days. You've been unconscious for 3 days. The doctors said you lost so much blood they didn't think you would make it. Your organs started shutting down. Again. His voice cracked. You keep almost dying on me. Hard to kill. Amara managed a weak smile. Like a cockroach. Dante didn't smile back. This isn't funny. You could have died. You should have died. Do you understand what you did? You threw yourself on a knife for a child you barely know. She's not just any child. She's Lucia. She's yours. And she's connected to my mother. Amara squeezed his hand weakly. I couldn't let them hurt her. I couldn't let her watch more violence. She's already seen too much. So have you, Dante said quietly. Because of me. All of this is because of me. Before Amara could respond, a doctor entered to check her vitals and change her bandages. Dante stepped back but didn't leave the room. He watched the doctor's every move like a hawk, making sure everything was done correctly. When they were alone again, Dante pulled his chair closer to the bed. I need to tell you something. About Michael. About why he was really in that restaurant that night. I don't want to talk about Michael. You need to hear this. Dante's expression was grim. Michael Bennett wasn't just FBI. He was my half-brother. The words didn't make sense. Amara stared at him, certain she had heard wrong. What? My father had an affair 28 years ago. The woman got pregnant. She moved away, changed her name, raised the child alone. That child was Michael. He grew up knowing who his father was, knowing he had been abandoned, and he spent his whole life hating me for having everything he didn't. Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. When he joined the FBI, he volunteered for the undercover operation to take down my family. It wasn't just a job for him. It was personal revenge. Amara felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. How do you know this? Because before Michael died, he sent a message to my father confessing everything. He wanted us to know that he had infiltrated our family, that he had gotten close to destroying us, and that he had used you as the bait to lure me to that restaurant. No. Amara shook her head. No, Michael loved me. He proposed. He wanted to marry me. He wanted to use you. Dante pulled out his phone and showed her a video. This is from Michael's apartment. We found it after he died. He recorded it 2 days before the shooting. On the screen, Michael sat in front of a camera. He looked tired and stressed. When he spoke, his voice was cold, clinical. Nothing like the warm fiancé Amara remembered. Day 342 of Operation Moretti. Subject Amara Chin continues to trust me completely. She has no idea her engagement is part of the operation. Tomorrow, I'll take her to Bellissimo restaurant and propose. I've confirmed Dante Moretti has reservations there the same night. Once we're inside, I'll signal my FBI backup and the rival family contacts. In the chaos, we'll gather evidence of Moretti's crimes and hopefully take him down. If Amara gets hurt in the crossfire, it's unfortunate but necessary. She's collateral damage in a much larger operation. The video ended. Amara felt like she had been stabbed again. He called me collateral damage. Your entire relationship was a lie, Dante said gently. He targeted you because you were a social worker who helped at-risk youth. He knew you had a good reputation, that you were trustworthy, that getting close to you would make him look legitimate. He researched you for months before staging your first meeting. Every moment, every word, every kiss was calculated. Tears streamed down Amara's face. I loved him. I thought he loved me. I know. And I'm sorry. I know what it's like to believe in someone completely and have that belief destroyed. Dante wiped her tears with his thumb. Isabella betrayed me too. Not intentionally, but she did. She was originally sent by her family to spy on me. She fell in love with me for real, but those first months were a lie. I didn't find out until after she died. It almost destroyed me. How do you trust anyone after that? You don't. Not easily. Not completely. Dante's dark eyes held hers. But then you meet someone who throws themselves on a knife for your daughter. Someone who could have let you die in the hospital raid, but helped you escape instead. Someone who looks at your broken child with genuine love instead of fear or pity. And you start to think that maybe, just maybe, trust is possible again. Amara's heart hammered. What are you saying? I'm saying that this marriage started as a prison sentence for you and a cover for me. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. Something real. Dante took her hand in both of his. You're not my prisoner anymore, Amara. You're my wife. And I'm falling for you. It terrifies me more than any bullet ever could. The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and impossible and somehow true. Amara looked at this man who had kidnapped her, forced her into marriage, made her life a nightmare. This man who had also saved her life twice. This man who loved his daughter with a fierce devotion that broke through all his walls. This man who looked at her now with raw vulnerability in his eyes. I don't know what I feel, Amara admitted. I'm angry at you for everything you did. But I'm also grateful you saved me. I hate that you forced me into this marriage. But Lucia needs us both. And when I'm with you, I feel something I can't name. Something that scares me. Good. Fear means it matters. Dante leaned closer. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to stop trying to escape and start building something real with me. With us. With Lucia. And if I say no, then I'll let you go. I'll make sure Lucia is protected without using you as cover. I'll set you up with a new identity, money, freedom. Whatever you want. His voice was steady. But you'll never see Lucia again. And I think that would break your heart almost as much as it would break hers. He was right. Somewhere in the past few weeks, Amara had fallen in love with a little girl who couldn't speak, but who communicated with drawings and gestures and those ancient eyes. Leaving Lucia would destroy something in Amara's soul. That's manipulative, she said weakly. Yes, but it's also true. Dante's thumb stroked the back of her hand. I won't force you to stay anymore. This has to be your choice. But I'm asking you to choose us. Choose this family we're building from broken pieces. Before Amara could answer, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Dante was on his feet instantly, his gun drawn from somewhere. A voice came over the hospital intercom. Code Black. Code Black. Armed intruders on floor 7. They were on floor 7. Dante moved to the door, peering into the hallway. Damn it. They found us again. Who? FBI. But not the legitimate agents. The ones Michael was working with. The ones on my enemy's payroll. Dante turned to her, his expression desperate. I can fight my way out of here, but you can't move. The stitches will tear. You'll bleed out. Then go without me. Absolutely not. Dante, if they catch you, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Lucia needs you. She needs both of us. Dante looked at her with such intensity it stole her breath. I told you I won't lose another person I care about. I meant it. Gunfire erupted in the hallway. Shouting. Screaming. They were running out of time. Amara made a decision. A choice. Maybe the most important choice of her life. Help me up, she said. Amara, you can't. Help me up, Dante. If we're going to survive this, we do it together. Something shifted in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Or recognition. He holstered his gun and gently helped her sit up, then stand. Pain screamed through her body, but she gritted her teeth and stayed upright. There's a service elevator at the end of the hall, Dante said. If we can reach it, we can get to the underground parking garage. I have a car waiting there. Then let's move. Dante supported most of her weight as they stumbled into the hallway. Bodies littered the floor. Hospital staff and patients caught in the crossfire. Amara's stomach turned, but she kept moving. They were halfway to the elevator when 6 men in tactical gear rounded the corner. Not police uniforms. Private military contractors. Expensive killers. Dante Moretti, the lead man, called out. It's over. Put down your weapon and surrender. Dante raised his gun. How about you leave now and I let you live? The man laughed. You're wounded. The woman can barely stand. You're outnumbered and outgunned. There's no escape. I've escaped worse odds. Not this time. The lead man raised his weapon. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Amara saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Dante prepare to fire back. Knew that even if Dante won this fight, the noise would bring more enemies. They were trapped. Unless she did something crazy. Amara grabbed the four-pole she had been using for support and threw it at the fire alarm on the wall. The pole hit the alarm perfectly, and instantly, sprinklers activated throughout the entire floor. Water poured from the ceiling, soaking everyone and everything. In the confusion, Dante fired 3 perfect shots. 3 men dropped. The others dove for cover, temporarily blinded by the water. "Run!" Dante shouted. They stumbled toward the service elevator. Dante fired behind them, keeping their enemies pinned down. Amara's stitches screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain. They reached the elevator and Dante slammed the button. The doors opened. They fell inside. Dante hit the button for the parking garage as bullets pinged off the closing doors. In the enclosed space, Dante and Amara stared at each other, soaking wet, bleeding, barely standing. And then, impossibly, Amara started laughing. "What's funny?" Dante asked, bewildered. "We're going to die," Amara gasped through her laughter. "We're probably going to die, and I just destroyed a hospital with a fire alarm." A smile tugged at Dante's lips. Then he was laughing too, the sound rusty and genuine and completely unexpected. They leaned against each other, laughing like lunatics while water dripped from their clothes and blood seeped through their bandages. The elevator reached the parking garage. The doors opened to reveal more armed men waiting. The laughter died. "Oh, come on," Amara muttered. "Seriously?" But then Dante's men emerged from behind the vehicles, their own weapons raised. A full-scale gunfight erupted. Dante grabbed Amara and dragged her toward an armored SUV, while his men provided cover fire. They reached the vehicle. Dante's driver was already behind the wheel. They dove into the back seat just as bullets shattered the windows around them. "Go, go, go!" Dante shouted. The SUV peeled out of the parking garage, smashing through a barrier and onto the street. Behind them, enemy vehicles gave chase. The driver took corners at terrifying speeds, weaving through traffic while bullets punched holes in the armored body. Amara clutched her bleeding side and looked at Dante. "Is this what your life is always like?" "Pretty much. It's exhausting." "Welcome to my world, Mrs. Moretti." Mrs. Moretti. 2 days ago, that name had felt like a curse. Now, bleeding and running for her life, it felt like something else. Like belonging. Like choice. Like maybe impossibly like home. They survived the hospital, but now they're fugitives running from everyone. And the biggest betrayal is still ahead. Keep watching. Chapter 7. What would you do if the only safe place left was hiding in the shadows with the man who destroyed your life, while the whole world wanted you both dead? They drove for 6 hours straight, changing vehicles twice and taking back roads through the mountains. Amara's stitches had torn during their escape. Blood soaked through the bandages Maria had hastily applied in the second vehicle. The pain was constant, throbbing, but Amara refused to complain. She had chosen this. She had chosen to run with Dante instead of surrendering to the FBI. Now they were fugitives together. By the time they reached the safe house, Amara was barely conscious. Dante carried her inside, his own wounds forgotten. The place was small, isolated, buried deep in the forest where no one would think to look. And was already there with Lucia, having been evacuated hours earlier when Dante's network detected the hospital raid. Lucia ran to them the moment they entered. Her eyes widened with fear when she saw all the blood. She looked at Amara, then at Dante, then back to Amara. Her small face crumpled and tears streamed down her cheeks. But she didn't speak. The single word she had screamed during the attack remained her only utterance. The trauma had sealed her voice away again. "I'm okay, sweetheart," Amara managed to say. "Just a little hurt. I'll be fine." Dante laid Amara on a bed while and worked to clean and restitch her wounds. There was no anesthetic, no pain medication, just vodka for disinfectant and leather to bite down on. Amara screamed into the leather as in worked, and through the haze of agony, she felt Dante's hand gripping hers and Lucia's small body pressed against her side. When it was finally over, Amara lay trembling and sweating. Dante sat beside her, looking haunted. Lucia crawled onto the bed carefully, avoiding Amara's injuries, and curled up against her like a kitten seeking warmth. "You should rest," Dante said quietly. "So should you. You were shot too. Flesh wound. I've had worse." But he looked exhausted, his face drawn with pain and stress. "Dante, what happens now? The FBI knows I helped you escape. They think I'm your accomplice. My face will be all over the news. I know. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to become a fugitive. But I am. We both are." Amara looked down at Lucia, who had fallen asleep against her. "What about her? She can't live like this." running, hiding, constantly in danger. I'll figure something out. I always do. Will you? Amara met his eyes. Because it seems like your enemies are everywhere. They poisoned your water supply. They found your secret hospital room. They know about every safe house. Someone is feeding them information from inside your organization. Dante's expression darkened. I know. I've been thinking the same thing. There's a traitor close to me. Someone who knows too much. Over the next 3 days, they lived like ghosts. No phones. No internet. No contact with the outside world. Dante's most trusted lieutenant, Marco, brought supplies every night, always careful to make sure he wasn't followed. He reported that the FBI had issued warrants for both Dante and Amara, that their photos were on every news station, that the manhunt was intense. But inside the safe house, something unexpected happened. They became a family. Dante cooked simple meals while Amara recovered. He was surprisingly domestic, comfortable in the kitchen, and his pasta was delicious. He told stories of his childhood in Italy, before his father dragged the family into the Mafia life. He talked about his mother, who had died trying to leave that world. He showed a side of himself Amara had never seen. Human. Gentle. Real. Lucia slowly opened up more. She couldn't speak, but she communicated through drawings and gestures. She drew pictures of the three of them holding hands. She drew hearts and flowers and sunshine. She drew a family that didn't exist yet, but that she desperately wanted. And Amara found herself wanting it too. At night, after Lucia was asleep, Dante and Amara would sit by the fire and talk. Really talk. About everything. Their fears, their regrets, their hopes. Dante told her about Isabella, about how he had failed to protect her, about how that failure haunted every decision he made. Amara told him about her mother's death, about raising May alone, about the loneliness of being strong when you wanted to fall apart. I never wanted this life, Dante said one night. I wanted to be a teacher. History. Can you imagine? Dante Moretti standing in front of a classroom talking about the Roman Empire. Amara smiled. Actually, I can. You'd be good at it. Intimidating, but good. My father laughed when I told him. Said teaching was for weak men. That Morettis were born to rule, not to serve. Dante stared into the fire. I was 17 when he forced me to make my first kill. A rival family member. I threw up for an hour afterwards. But my father said I'd done well. Said I was finally becoming a man. That's not what being a man means. I know that now. But I was a kid desperate for my father's approval. So I did what he wanted. I killed when he ordered. I built the empire he demanded. And I lost myself somewhere along the way. Dante looked at her. Until I met you. You remind me that there's more to life than violence and power. I'm not some magical cure for your darkness, Dante. No, but you're a light I didn't know I needed. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Slowly, carefully, Dante reached out and cupped Amara's face. His thumb traced her cheekbone. His eyes asked a question. Amara answered by leaning forward and kissing him. It was different from their forced wedding kiss. This was real. Honest. Full of confusion and attraction, and the beginning of something neither of them had planned. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. This is complicated, Amara whispered. Everything about us is complicated. I still don't forgive you for kidnapping me. I know. And I'm still angry about the forced marriage. I know that too. But I'm also starting to care about you. And that terrifies me. Dante pulled her close, careful of her injuries. It terrifies me too. But maybe that's how we know it's real. They fell asleep on the couch together, wrapped in each other's arms, while Lucia slept peacefully in the next room. For 3 days, they had peace. For 3 days, they were safe. Then Marco came in the middle of the night. Dante woke instantly, his hand reaching for the gun he kept nearby. What's wrong? Marco looked agitated. Boss, we have a problem. The FBI has narrowed down your location. They're sweeping this area. We need to move now. How did they find us? I don't know. But we have maybe an hour before they're at the door. Dante moved quickly, waking Amara and Anne, getting Lucia ready to travel. They packed only essentials. Within 15 minutes, they were heading to the vehicles Marco had brought. That's when Amara noticed something odd. Marco kept glancing at his watch. Nervous. Eager. Like he was waiting for something. And suddenly Amara knew. Dante, stop, she said urgently. What? It's him. It's Marco. He's the traitor. Marco's expression changed instantly. The loyalty disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. You're smarter than you look. He pulled out a gun and pointed it at them. At the same instant, spotlights blazed to life all around the safe house. They were surrounded. FBI agents, tactical teams, and what looked like private military contractors all emerged from the forest. "Sorry, boss," Marco said without any real remorse. "But they made me a better offer. Immunity, witness protection, and $5 million. All I had to do was deliver you." Dante's face was stone. "How long?" "6 months. I've been feeding them information for 6 months. Every safe house. Every business. Every secret. It's all gone, Dante. Your empire is finished." "Why?" "Because you're weak." Marco spat the words. "You fell in love with a woman. You became soft for a kid. The old Dante would have killed them both and moved on. But you? You tried to play family. You forgot what you are. A killer. A monster. And monsters don't get happy endings." Behind Marco, a familiar figure stepped into the light. A woman with dark hair and cold eyes. A woman who looked exactly like the photographs of Isabella. Dante's face went white. "No. You're dead. I watched you die." Isabella smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You watched someone die. A body double. Very convincing, wasn't she? But I've been alive this whole time, Dante. Working with the FBI. Helping them destroy you piece by piece." The betrayal hit Dante like a physical blow. He actually staggered. "Why? Why would you fake your death? Let me think you were dead for 5 years." "Because I never loved you," Isabella said simply. "I was FBI from the beginning. Deep undercover. Getting pregnant with Lucia was part of the mission. Creating ties that would let me infiltrate deeper into your organization." She looked at Lucia, who was clinging to and staring at the woman who was supposed to be her mother. "The kid was collateral. Useful at the time. But once I had enough evidence, I staged my death and disappeared. Let you think I died a martyr. It made you careless. Emotional. Easy to manipulate. You used our daughter." Dante's voice was lethal quiet. "You made her watch a fake death. You traumatized her. You took her voice away. Necessary sacrifices." Isabella shrugged. "And now I'm here to collect my reward. You're going to prison, Dante. Forever. And I get to walk away a hero. The brave agent who brought down the Moretti crime family." Lucia made a sound. Not words. Just a broken, wounded noise that shattered hearts. She pressed her face into Anne's shoulder, her small body shaking. Amara's rage exploded. "You're a monster. You're worse than anything Dante ever was. At least he loves his daughter. You used her like a prop," says the woman who Stockholm syndromed herself into loving her kidnapper. Isabella laughed. "You're pathetic." "No," Amara said clearly. "I'm a mother. Something you'll never understand." Isabella's hand moved to her gun. "Cute speech. But it doesn't matter. You're both going to prison. Lucia goes into foster care. And I collect my reward." "Actually," a new voice said from the darkness. "That's not quite how this is going to work." A man stepped into the light. Older, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit. Amara recognized him from news reports. FBI Director Richard Chin. "Wait. Chin. That was her last name." The director looked at Amara with sad eyes. "Hello, niece." The world tilted. "What?" "Your father's brother. We've been estranged for years. But I've been keeping tabs on you. And when you got mixed up with Moretti, I couldn't just stand by." He turned to Isabella. "Agent Rossi, you're under arrest." Isabella's confidence cracked. "What? No. I'm the hero here. I brought down Moretti. You also falsified evidence. Murdered witnesses. Worked with organized crime to eliminate your competition." Director Chin held up a tablet. "We've been investigating you for months. Turns out you didn't just infiltrate the Moretti family. You became part of it. You've been taking bribes, ordering hits, building your own criminal empire. You're just as corrupt as the man you were supposed to arrest." "That's a lie. It's all here. Financial records. Recorded conversations. Marco wasn't just your informant. He was ours too. He recorded every conversation you had. Every order you gave. Every law you broke." Marco grinned. "Triple agent, baby. The FBI was paying me to spy on you while you thought I was spying on Dante. Confusing, right?" Isabella lunged for Marco, but FBI agents grabbed her. She screamed and fought as they dragged her away, her perfect plan collapsing around her. Director Chin turned to Dante. "You're not innocent either, Moretti. You've done terrible things. But my niece seems to think you're worth saving. And that daughter of yours needs a father." He paused. "So here's the deal. You testify against every corrupt official in your organization. You expose the FBI agents who were taking your money. You help us clean up this mess. In exchange, witness protection for you, Amara and Lucia. New identities. New life. Clean slate. And if I refuse, then you go to prison and Lucia goes into the system. Your choice. Dante looked at Amara. At Lucia. At the family they had built from broken pieces and impossible circumstances. I'll testify, he said quietly. I'll tell you everything. 6 months later. The small coastal town barely had a name. 300 residents, 1 grocery store, a school, and miles of empty beach. Perfect for disappearing. David Mitchell worked at the local hardware store. His wife Sarah volunteered at the school. Their daughter Lucy was in kindergarten, slowly learning to speak again with the help of patient teachers and therapists. No one knew they used to be Dante Moretti, Amara Chen, and Lucia Moretti. No one knew about the violence, the blood, the war they had survived. Amara stood on the beach, watching the sunset. She heard footsteps behind her and smiled as Dante wrapped his arms around her waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. "Just thinking about how far we've come. 6 months ago, I hated you. Now," she leaned back against him. Now I love you. Completely. Impossibly. Against all logic." Dante turned her around and kissed her deeply. "I love you too. I never thought I'd get to say that again. To mean it again. Mama. Papa." They both turned to see Lucia running toward them, her voice clear and bright. She had started speaking 2 months ago, slowly at first, but gaining confidence every day. Now she couldn't stop talking, making up for years of silence. She crashed into them both, and they caught her, holding her between them. Their daughter. Their miracle. "I drew you something at school," Lucia said excitedly. "Want to see?" "Always," Amara said. Lucia pulled a folded paper from her pocket. When Amara opened it, tears filled her eyes. It was a drawing of 3 people holding hands on a beach. Above them, the sun was shining. Below the drawing, in careful letters, Lucia had written, "My family. My home. My happy ending." Dante's voice was thick with emotion. "Is it, princess? Is this your happy ending?" Lucia looked at both of them with those ancient eyes that were finally starting to look young again. "Yes," she said simply. "Because we're together. That's all that matters." She was right. After everything they had survived, every betrayal and bullet and brush with death, they had found something real. Something worth fighting for. Love hadn't saved them. They had saved each other. And that made all the difference. But is their story really over? One more chapter reveals the final twist. Keep watching. Chapter 8. What would you do if the dead came back to life and demanded to take away the only happiness you'd ever known, and you discovered that your perfect new life was built on one more lie? 3 months had passed since they moved to the coastal town. 3 months of peace, of normal life, of healing. Amara had started working at the local community center, helping kids like she used to. Dante worked at the hardware store and coached youth soccer on weekends. Lucia was thriving in school, making friends, laughing again. It was everything Amara had ever wanted. A simple life. A loving family. Safety. Which is exactly when everything fell apart. It started with a woman appearing at their door on a Tuesday morning. Amara answered, expecting a neighbor or maybe a delivery. Instead, she found herself staring at Isabella. But that was impossible. Isabella had been arrested. Isabella was in prison awaiting trial. Except here she stood, wearing civilian clothes, looking healthy and free. "Hello, Amara," Isabella said with a cold smile. "Surprised to see me?" Amara tried to slam the door, but Isabella jammed her foot in. "I wouldn't do that. We need to talk. About my daughter." "Your daughter?" Amara's voice was sharp. "You mean the child you used as a prop? The child you traumatized? That daughter. Legally, she's mine. Biologically, she's mine. And I want her back." Dante appeared behind Amara, his body tensing when he saw Isabella. "You're supposed to be in custody. How are you here?" "Turns out I had friends in high places. Friends who didn't appreciate me being arrested for crimes I committed under their orders." Isabella stepped back, revealing 2 large men in suits standing behind her. "Private security. Expensive. Dangerous. I made a deal. Testified against some very powerful people. Got immunity. Full pardon. And now I'm a free woman." "No," Dante said flatly. "That's not possible. Director Chen promised." "Director Chen is dead," Isabella interrupted. "Heart attack 2 weeks ago. Very convenient. And with him gone, all his little deals disappeared too. including the one protecting you. The world tilted beneath Amara's feet. Director Chin was dead? Her uncle, the man who had saved them? I don't believe you, Dante said. Isabella held up her phone, showing a news article. FBI director dies suddenly. The headline screamed across the screen, along with a photo of Richard Chin. Believe it now? Isabella's smile widened. Without his protection, your witness protection deal is void. You're exposed. Vulnerable. And I'm here to take back what's mine. From inside the house, Lucia's voice called out. Mama, who's at the door? Isabella's eyes lit up with something predatory. That's my baby girl. Lucia. Sweetheart. It's Mommy. Lucia appeared in the hallway. When she saw Isabella, every bit of color drained from her face. She froze, staring at the woman who had faked her own death, the woman who had given her nightmares for years. No, Lucia whispered. You're not real. You're dead. You died. I know, baby. But Mommy's alive. It was all a mistake. And now I'm here to take you home. This is my home. Lucia ran to Amara and grabbed her around the waist. Mama, don't let her take me. Please. Isabella's expression hardened. I'm your mother, Lucia. Not her. Me. And the court agrees with me. She pulled out legal documents. Amara scanned them quickly, her heart sinking with every word. Custody granted to biological mother Isabella Rossi. Termination of witness protection arrangement. Immediate surrender of minor child Lucia Rose Moretti. You can't do this, Amara said desperately. She doesn't know you. She doesn't want to go with you. What she wants doesn't matter. She's 5 years old. The law says she belongs with her biological parent. Isabella held out her hand. Come on, Lucia. Time to go. I won't go. Lucia screamed. You're not my mama. You left me. You hurt me. I never hurt you, you ungrateful little brat. I gave you life. The cruel words made Lucia flinch. Dante moved forward, his face murderous. Get off my property. Now. Before I do something that will send me to prison. Go ahead. Hit me. Threaten me. It'll just prove you're unfit. Isabella gestured to her security. And these gentlemen are here to make sure you comply with the court order. Resist and they'll use force. Your choice. The security team moved closer, their hands near their concealed weapons. They weren't FBI. They weren't official. They were hired muscle, the kind that didn't ask questions and didn't leave witnesses. Amara's mind raced. They couldn't fight their way out of this. They were outnumbered and legally powerless. But they couldn't just hand Lucia over to this monster either. Give us 1 day, Amara said quickly. 1 day to prepare Lucia. To pack her things. To say goodbye properly. You can't just rip her away from the only real family she's ever known. Isabella considered this. Fine. 24 hours. But if you run, I'll find you. And next time, I won't be so nice. She looked at Lucia with cold calculation. See you tomorrow, daughter. Pack your favorite toys. She left with her security team, climbing into an expensive car that looked completely out of place in their modest neighborhood. The moment they were gone, Dante slammed the door and leaned against it. We have to run. Tonight. Disappear again. Where? Amara asked. She found us once. She'll find us again. And now we don't have government protection. Then what do we do? I won't give her up. I can't. Lucia was sobbing against Amara's side, her small body shaking with terror. Don't let her take me. Please, Mama. Please, Papa. Don't let the bad lady take me. Amara held her daughter close, her heart breaking. I won't, baby. I promise. We'll find a way. But she had no idea how. That night, after Lucia finally cried herself to sleep, Dante and Amara sat in the kitchen trying to find a solution. Every option led nowhere. Running meant living in fear forever. Fighting meant losing everything. Surrendering meant losing Lucia. There has to be something, Amara said desperately. Some legal option. Some way to prove she's unfit. She's FBI. Was FBI. She has connections, resources, lawyers. Dante's voice was hollow. And we're criminals in witness protection. No judge will side with us. Then we make her disappear, Amara said quietly. Dante looked at her sharply. What? You heard me. She's a threat to our family. To Lucia. We eliminate the threat. Amara, that's not you talking. That's desperation. So what? Maybe I learned from the best. Amara met his eyes. You've killed people for less. You've eliminated threats before. Why not now? Because I'm trying to be better. For you. For Lucia. For the life we're building. Dante took her hands. If I go back to being that man, I lose everything that matters. I lose myself. And I'll lose you. But if we don't do something, we lose Lucia. They sat in terrible silence, trapped between impossible choices. That's when they heard the window break in Lucia's room. Both moved instantly, running down the hall. Dante reached the bedroom first and stopped dead in the doorway. Amara crashed into his back, then looked past him and felt her blood turn to ice. Isabella stood in the middle of the room, holding a sleeping Lucia in her arms. She must have drugged her somehow. Lucia's eyes were closed, her body limp. Did you really think I'd wait 24 hours? Isabella laughed. I know how criminals think. I knew you'd run. So I came back to collect what's mine. Put her down, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. Right now. Or what? You'll shoot me? In front of your daughter? Isabella adjusted Lucia in her arms. Even if she's asleep now, she'll wake up eventually. And the first thing she'll see is her father murdering her mother. Think that'll help her trauma. She was right. They were trapped. Isabella moved toward the window, where a ladder waited outside. Don't follow me. Don't try to find us. If you do, I'll make sure Lucia knows exactly what kind of monsters raised her. I'll show her photos of the people her father killed. I'll tell her how her precious mama helped a criminal escape justice. I'll destroy every good memory she has of you. Please, Amara begged. Please don't do this. She needs us. She's finally healing. She'll heal with me. Her real mother. Isabella climbed onto the windowsill. Goodbye, Dante. Enjoy your sad little life, knowing you failed to protect another woman you loved. She started down the ladder. Dante moved toward the window, but Amara grabbed his arm. You can't. She's right. If Lucia wakes up and sees violence, it'll destroy her. So what do I do? Let her take my daughter. No. Amara's voice hardened with determination. We play the long game. We follow them. We find where Isabella takes her. And we gather evidence. Proof that Isabella is unfit. Proof that she's dangerous. And we take her down legally. That could take months. Years. Then it takes years. But we do it right. We don't become the monsters Isabella thinks we are. Dante looked torn, anguished. Then he pulled Amara close and held her while they both watched Isabella disappear into the night with their daughter. In that moment, Amara felt something inside her break and reform into something harder. Stronger. More determined. Isabella thought she had won. She thought taking Lucia would destroy them. But she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because Amara wasn't the naive social worker anymore. And Dante wasn't the impulsive killer he used to be. They were parents. And parents would do anything to protect their children. Even if it meant playing a dangerous game with someone who had already proven she had no conscience. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, Amara would make sure they won. No matter what it cost. Isabella has Lucia. But she underestimated what two people in love are capable of when they fight for their child. The final battle begins now. Keep watching. Chapter 9. What would you do if saving the child you love meant walking straight into hell, knowing you might not walk back out, and the only person you could trust was the man who once destroyed your life? For 2 weeks, Amara and Dante lived in agony. Every night without Lucia felt like dying slowly. Every morning waking up to her empty room was a fresh wound. But they didn't fall apart. They planned. Dante used his old connections to track Isabella. It took time and money, but eventually they found her. She had taken Lucia to a compound upstate, a fortress disguised as a luxury estate. The place was crawling with private security. Getting in would be suicide. Getting in was exactly what they planned to do. This is insane, Dante said as they sat in a rental car 2 miles from the compound. We should wait. Gather more evidence. Build a legal case. We've been gathering evidence for 2 weeks. We have nothing that would hold up in court. Everything Isabella does is technically legal. Amara checked the gun Dante had given her. She had learned to shoot over the past 2 weeks. She wasn't great, but she was decent enough. She's not breaking any laws by keeping her biological daughter. The courts don't care that Lucia is miserable. How do you know she's miserable? Because I spoke to her. Amara pulled out her phone and showed him a video. She had managed to hack into the compound's security system with help from one of Dante's tech people. The footage showed Lucia sitting alone in a lavish bedroom, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't speaking again. The trauma had stolen her voice for the second time. Dante's hands clenched into fists. I'm going to kill Isabella. No, you're not. Because if you kill her, we become the monsters. We prove everyone right about us. Amara put the phone away. We go in. We get Lucia. We expose Isabella's connection to organized crime. We let the law handle the rest. And if the law doesn't work, then we disappear. All three of us. Forever this time. New country. New identities. Somewhere Isabella will never find us. It was a terrible plan. Full of holes and risks. But it was the only plan they had. That night, they approached the compound on foot. Dante knew how security systems worked because he had installed similar ones in his own properties. They found the blind spots, the weak points, the places where guards got lazy. They climbed over the wall using rope and stealth. They moved through the shadows like ghosts. And they reached the main house without being detected. Inside, the place was obscenely luxurious. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork worth millions. Isabella had definitely made money from her corruption. They found Lucia's room on the second floor. Dante picked the lock silently while Amara kept watch. The door opened. Lucia was asleep in a bed 3 times too big for her. Even in sleep, she looked sad. Her face was tear-stained. She clutched a drawing to her chest. When Amara looked closer, she saw it was one of Lucia's old drawings from their coastal home. The one showing their family on the beach. "Baby," Amara whispered, gently shaking Lucia awake. "Wake up, sweetheart. We're here." Lucia's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she looked confused. Then recognition hit, and her face transformed with joy. She opened her mouth to scream with happiness, but Amara quickly covered it. "Quiet, baby. We have to be very quiet. Can you do that?" Lucia nodded frantically. Tears of relief streamed down her face. She threw her arms around Amara's neck and held on like she would never let go. Dante knelt beside them. "Are you okay, princess? Did she hurt you?" Lucia shook her head. Then she pointed to her throat and made a helpless gesture. She had tried to speak but couldn't. The words were locked inside again. "It's okay," Dante said gently. "We'll get you home. You'll find your voice again. I promise." They moved toward the door. That's when the lights blazed on. Isabella stood in the doorway with 6 armed security guards. She looked furious and somehow amused at the same time. "Did you really think I wouldn't know you were coming? Did you think I wouldn't have cameras everywhere?" She laughed. "I've been watching you since you climbed the wall. I let you get all the way here just to see the hope in your eyes before I crushed it." The guards raised their weapons. Dante immediately stepped in front of Amara and Lucia, shielding them with his body. "You're not taking her," Dante said coldly. "I don't have to take her. She's already mine. You're the ones breaking and entering. You're the ones committing a felony." Isabella smiled. "I could have these men shoot you right now and claim self-defense. Problem solved." "Except you won't," Amara said, her mind racing. "Because if we die, questions get asked. Investigations happen. And we've already sent evidence to 3 different journalists. Evidence of your corruption. Your connections to organized crime. Your illegal deals. If anything happens to us, that evidence gets released automatically." It was a bluff. They hadn't sent anything to anyone. But Isabella didn't know that. Isabella's smile faltered. "You're lying." "Am I? Want to test that theory? Kill us and find out if your face ends up on the news tomorrow." The standoff stretched. Isabella's security team looked to her for orders. Dante's hand moved slowly toward the gun hidden at his back. Amara held Lucia close, her heart hammering. Then Isabella did something unexpected. She laughed. Really laughed. "You know what? Fine. You want to play this game? Let's play." She gestured to her guards. "Lower your weapons. Let them go." "Ma'am," one guard asked, confused. "I said let them go. Dante, Amara, take Lucia. Leave. Go back to your little coastal town and play happy family." It was too easy. This had to be a trap. "What's the catch?" Dante asked. "No catch. I'm letting you win." Isabella walked closer, her eyes glittering with malice. "Because here's the truth. I don't actually want Lucia. I never did. She was always just a means to an end. A way to infiltrate your organization, Dante. A way to destroy you." "You're her mother," Amara said, disgusted. "Biologically, sure. But emotionally, I feel nothing for her. Nothing at all." Isabella looked at Lucia with complete indifference. "I came here to take her back just to hurt you. To watch you suffer. And it worked beautifully. But now I'm bored. So take her. Keep her. Raise her. See if I care. Then why the custody fight? Why the legal documents?" Dante demanded. "To prove I could. To show you that even in your new life, I still had power over you." Isabella shrugged. But honestly, the kid is exhausting. She cries constantly. She won't eat. She won't speak. She's damaged goods. You can have her." The cruelty of those words hit like bullets. Lucia buried her face in Amara's shoulder, her body shaking. This woman who had given birth to her was rejecting her completely. Amara felt rage like she had never known. "You're a monster. And you're a fool who fell in love with a criminal. We all have our flaws." Isabella turned to leave. "Get out of my house. And don't come back. Next time, I won't be so generous." They didn't wait to be told twice. Dante led them through the house and out the back exit. No guard stopped them. No alarm sounded. True to her word, Isabella was letting them go. But as they climbed back over the wall with Lucia between them, Amara felt like something was wrong. This was too easy. Isabella wouldn't just give up. There had to be another layer to this. They were halfway to their car when they heard sirens. Police cars screeched to a halt all around them. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. And at the center of it all was Isabella, holding her phone and smiling. "Officers, there they are. The kidnappers who broke into my home and tried to steal my daughter." Amara's blood turned to ice. Of course. This was the trap. Isabella had let them take Lucia just so she could call the police and have them arrested in the act. "On the ground. Now!" an officer shouted. Dante looked at Amara. In his eyes, she saw the decision forming. He was going to fight. He was going to shoot his way out, even though it meant dying, because at least Lucia would have a chance. "No," Amara said firmly. She handed Lucia to Dante. "Take her and run. I'll buy you time." "Amara, no. I love you. Both of you. Now run." Before Dante could stop her, Amara turned and walked toward the police with her hands up. "Don't shoot. I'm unarmed. I surrender." The officers focused on her, giving Dante precious seconds. He ran with Lucia, disappearing into the forest. Police chased after him, but Dante knew these woods. He would get away. Amara was thrown to the ground, handcuffed, read her rights. She didn't fight. She just smiled because Lucia was safe. That was all that mattered. Isabella walked over and crouched beside her. "Stupid girl. You sacrificed yourself for nothing. We'll catch him. We'll catch both of them. And you'll spend the rest of your life in prison." "Maybe," Amara said calmly. "Or maybe while you were focused on me, you didn't notice that Dante planted recording devices all over your compound. Devices that recorded you admitting you feel nothing for Lucia. That you called her damaged goods. That you used her as a pawn." She smiled wider. "Those recordings are already being sent to Child Protective Services, the FBI, and every major news outlet. By tomorrow, the world will know exactly what kind of mother you really are." Isabella's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Want to test that theory?" For the first time, Isabella looked uncertain. Afraid. Because if those recordings existed, if they proved she was an unfit mother, she would lose everything. Her reputation. Her freedom. Her leverage. "Check her phone," Isabella ordered desperately. "Check it now." An officer pulled out Amara's phone. The screen showed a live upload in progress. Audio files being sent to multiple locations. The upload was at 98%. Isabella lunged for the phone, but it was too late. The upload completed. In that moment, Amara saw Isabella's world collapse. She saw the realization hit that she had been outplayed. "You destroyed me," Isabella whispered. "No," Amara said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. We just made sure everyone knew about it." The police received new orders through their radios. They released Amara and moved toward Isabella instead. Apparently, someone very powerful had heard those recordings and wanted Isabella arrested immediately. As they led Isabella away in handcuffs, she screamed threats and curses. But Amara didn't listen. She just ran. Ran toward the forest where Dante and Lucia were hiding. Ran toward her family. She found them a mile away, hiding in a cave. The moment Lucia saw her, the little girl broke free from Dante and ran into Amara's arms. And then miraculously she spoke. "Mama," Lucia said clearly. "You came back. Always, baby. Always." Dante pulled them both close. "Is it over? Is she really gone?" "It's over," Amara confirmed. "She's going to prison. For a long time. And we're finally free." They held each other in that cave, this family forged through fire and trauma and impossible love. They had survived everything. Every betrayal. Every bullet. Every loss. And they had won. Not through violence. Not through revenge. But through love and sacrifice and refusing to become the monsters everyone thought they were. As dawn broke over the mountains, they walked out of the cave together, toward a future that was finally, truly theirs. But every story has one more chapter. One more revelation that changes everything. The final chapter awaits. Keep watching. Chapter 10. What would you do if you discovered that surviving hell wasn't the end of your story, but just the beginning of something more beautiful than you ever imagined possible? Amara stood in the hospital waiting room, her hands shaking as she held the small white stick. 2 pink lines. Positive. She was pregnant. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. After everything they had been through, after all the violence and pain and near-death experiences, there was new life growing inside her. A life created during those desperate weeks in hiding when she and Dante had finally stopped fighting what they felt for each other. Mrs. Mitchell? A nurse called her fake name. They still used their witness protection identities, even though the program had technically ended. Old habits die hard. The doctor will see you now. Amara followed the nurse into an exam room, her mind spinning. How would Dante react? They had never discussed having more children. They were barely surviving parenting Lucia through her trauma. Could they handle a baby? But beneath the fear was something else. Joy. Pure, unexpected joy. The doctor confirmed what the home test had shown. 6 weeks pregnant. Healthy. Due in early spring. Congratulations, the doctor said warmly. Do you want to know if there are any complications we should watch for? No complications, Amara said softly, placing her hand over her still flat stomach. Just a miracle. She left the hospital in a daze. The sun was setting over the coastal town they now truly called home. 6 months had passed since Isabella's arrest. 6 months of peace. 6 months of healing. Isabella had been charged with corruption, child endangerment, conspiracy, and a dozen other crimes. The recordings had destroyed her completely. She was looking at 20 years in federal prison. Her connections had abandoned her. Her career was over. She had lost everything. And Lucia had finally, permanently, legally become theirs. The adoption had been finalized last month. Lucia Rose Mitchell. Their daughter in every way that mattered. Amara drove home slowly, practicing how to tell Dante. She found him in the backyard, building a treehouse with Lucia. Their daughter was chattering away, her voice bright and clear. She hadn't stopped talking since the night they rescued her. It was like all the words she had held inside for years were pouring out now. Higher, Papa. Make it higher so I can see the ocean, Lucia directed. Any higher and you'll need a pilot's license, Dante laughed. He had changed so much in 6 months. The hard edges had softened. He smiled more. Laughed more. The monster was gone. In his place was just a man trying to be a good father. He looked up and saw Amara watching. His whole face lit up. Hey, you're back. How was the doctor? Good. Really good. Amara walked closer, her heart pounding. Actually, we need to talk. Dante's expression immediately shifted to concern. What's wrong? Are you sick? No, not sick. Amara took his hand and placed it on her stomach. But I am pregnant. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Dante stared at her, his eyes wide with shock. Lucia had stopped talking and was watching them both with intense curiosity. Pregnant, Dante repeated slowly. As in, there's a baby. As in, there's a baby. Our baby. Our baby. Dante's face went through a dozen emotions in seconds. Shock, fear, confusion, and then finally overwhelming joy. He picked Amara up and spun her around, laughing like a man who had just won the lottery. We're having a baby. We're actually having a baby. Papa, what's happening? Lucia climbed down from the treehouse. Why are you spinning, Mama? Dante set Amara down gently and knelt to Lucia's level. Princess, how would you feel about being a big sister? Lucia's eyes went huge. A baby? I'm getting a baby brother or sister? Yes, Amara said, kneeling beside them. In about 7 months. Lucia screamed with pure joy and threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. I'm going to teach the baby everything. I'm going to be the best big sister in the whole world. They held each other in the backyard. This family that shouldn't exist but did anyway. This family built from broken pieces and impossible circumstances. This family that had survived everything the world threw at them. That night, after Lucia was asleep, Dante and Amara sat on the porch watching the stars. He held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. I never thought I'd get this, Dante said quietly. After Isabella, after everything, I thought I was done. I thought happiness wasn't for men like me. You're not that man anymore. Because of you. Because you refused to let me be that man. Because you saw something in me worth saving. Dante turned to face her. Do you remember that night in the restaurant? When I first saved you. How could I forget? I told myself I was keeping you alive because you were a witness. Because you were useful. But the truth is, the moment I looked into your eyes, something shifted. You looked at me like I was a monster, yes. But also like I was human. Like you could see past the blood and the violence to the man underneath. He cupped her face gently. You made me want to be that man. The one you saw. Not the killer. Not the criminal. Just Dante. You made me want to live again, Amara said softly. After Michael's betrayal, I thought love was a lie. I thought trusting anyone was stupid. But you showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I choose you, Dante said. Every day. Forever. I choose you too. He kissed her softly, tenderly, like she was the most precious thing in the world. And to him she was. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then Dante spoke again. I want to do it right this time. Do what right? Marriage. We never had a real wedding. Just a forced ceremony surrounded by death. I want to marry you again. For real this time. In a church with flowers and music and Lucia as flower girl. I want to stand in front of people and choose you, not because I have to, but because I want to more than anything in the world. Amara felt tears stream down her face. Are you proposing to your own wife? I'm proposing to the woman I love. Wife is just a legal title. I want it to be more than that. Dante slid off the porch swing and knelt on one knee. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple gold band with a single diamond. Nothing flashy. Just beautiful. Amara Chin Mitchell, will you marry me? Again. For real this time. Yes, Amara sobbed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Like it was always meant to be there. They got married 6 weeks later. A small ceremony on the beach with just Lucia, and who had become like family, and a few friends from town who knew them as David and Sarah, the nice couple who ran the community center and coached soccer. Lucia wore a yellow dress and carried a basket of flowers. She took her role as flower girl very seriously, making sure every petal was placed perfectly on the sand. Amara wore a simple white dress that flowed in the ocean breeze. Dante wore a suit but no tie, looking relaxed and happy in a way Amara had never seen before. The local minister performed the ceremony. This time there were no guns. No violence. No death. Just love. Do you, David, take Sarah to be your lawfully wedded wife? The minister asked, using their fake names. I do, Dante said clearly. And I promise to choose her every single day for the rest of my life. And do you, Sarah, take David to be your lawfully wedded husband? Amara looked at this man who had once been her captor, her enemy, her nightmare. This man who had become her protector, her partner, her home. I do, she said. And I promise to love him through every storm, because he taught me that love isn't about perfect moments. It's about surviving impossible ones together. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. The minister smiled. You may kiss your bride. Also again. Dante kissed her as the sun set over the ocean, and it felt like the first kiss and the last kiss and every kiss in between all at once. Lucia cheered and cried happy tears. The small group of friends applauded. And for the first time in her life, Amara felt completely, utterly, perfectly at peace. 3 months later, as winter turned to spring, Amara went into labor. It was fast and intense, and Dante held her hand the entire time, refusing to leave even when the pain made her scream things at him that would make a sailor blush. I hate you, Amara yelled during a particularly bad contraction. This is all your fault. I know, baby. I'm sorry. You're doing amazing, Dante said calmly, having been warned by the nurses that laboring women often said things they didn't mean. No, seriously, I hate you so much right now. I love you too. For hours later, their son was born. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Healthy lungs, because he announced his arrival to the entire hospital. Tiny perfect fingers and toes. Dark hair like his father. Dark eyes like his mother. They named him Michael. Not after Amara's dead ex-fiancé, but after the archangel. The warrior angel who fought against darkness. Because this child was born from love that had conquered darkness. When Lucia met her baby brother, she was uncharacteristically quiet. She just stared at him with wonder, gently touching his tiny hand with one finger. He's so small, she whispered. You were this small once, Dante told her. Really? Really? And I held you just like I'm holding him now. And I loved you just as much. Do you love him more than me? Lucia asked, her voice small and worried. Dante pulled her close with his free arm. Princess, love isn't a pie where if I give someone a piece, there's less for you. Love is magic. The more you give away, the more you have. I love you completely. And I love Michael completely. My heart just got bigger to hold you both. Lucia seemed to accept this. She climbed onto the hospital bed carefully and snuggled against Amara's side, staring at her baby brother with protective adoration. I'll keep him safe, Lucia announced. Nobody will ever hurt him. I promise. I know you will, sweetheart, Amara said softly. You're already the best big sister. They stayed like that for a long time. A family of 4, complete and whole and safe. That night, after Lucia had gone home with, and baby Michael was sleeping in the nursery, Dante sat beside Amara's hospital bed and took her hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing past the monster to the man. For saving me in every way a person can be saved. His voice broke. I was dead inside, Amara. I had been dead for years. And you brought me back to life. We saved each other, Amara said. You gave me strength when I thought I had none. You showed me what real love looks like. Not the fairy tale kind. The messy, complicated, fight for each other kind. Is this really our life now? Is this really real? It's real. We're real. Amara squeezed his hand. We survived bullets and betrayals and impossible odds. We earned this happiness, Dante. Every single bit of it. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I love you. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. I love you too. Always. 1 year later, Amara stood in their backyard watching Dante push Lucia on the swing while Michael crawled around on a blanket, exploring everything with curious hands. The treehouse was finished now, with a slide and a rope ladder and Lucia's artwork decorating the walls. They had turned their small house into a home. Pictures covered the walls. Toys littered the floors. The kitchen always smelled like cookies because Lucia had discovered she loved baking. It was chaotic and messy and loud and absolutely perfect. Amara's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For a moment, old fear spiked through her. But when she opened it, she found a photo of Isabella in prison orange, looking older and defeated. Below the photo was a message from an FBI agent they had worked with. Thought you'd want to know. Isabella was denied parole. She's serving her full sentence. She can never hurt you or your family again. Amara deleted the message and blocked the number. That part of their life was over. Done. They didn't need updates about Isabella anymore. She was the past. This beautiful, chaotic, perfect life was their present and future. Mama, Lucia called from the swing. Come push me higher. I'm coming, baby. Amara walked toward her family, toward the sound of laughter and joy. She thought about that night in the restaurant a lifetime ago. The night that had destroyed her old life and started this new one. If someone had told her then that the dangerous man who saved her would become her husband, her partner, her everything, she would have thought they were crazy. But love wasn't predictable. It wasn't safe. It wasn't neat and tidy. Love was choosing someone in the midst of chaos. It was standing beside them when the whole world was against you. It was building a life from broken pieces and calling it beautiful. Love was Dante looking at her across the yard with his whole heart in his eyes. Love was Lucia squealing with joy as Amara pushed her higher. Love was Michael laughing at absolutely nothing because he was happy and safe and loved. Love was this moment, right now, perfect in its imperfection. Amara had died twice and been reborn. She had lost everything and gained something more valuable. She had married a monster and helped him become a man. And in the end, love had won. Not because it was easy, but because they had fought for it with everything they had. As the sun set over their small coastal town, Amara whispered a prayer of gratitude. For second chances. For impossible love. For the family that shouldn't exist but did anyway. For surviving hell and finding heaven on the other side. This was their happy ending. Hard-earned. Battle-scarred. Absolutely real. And it was more beautiful than any fairy tale could ever be. Thank you for watching this journey. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, please subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that love can survive anything. That broken people can heal. That happy endings exist even after the darkest nights. Remember, true love isn't found in perfect moments. It's forged in surviving the impossible together. Until the next story, Take care of your hearts and the people who hold them.